All right. Well, I'm doing a whole series of interviews with my family, and I figured it'd be important for me to start off the interview series by actually going through it myself. So let's go through the interview questions that I have. I've just got them off to the screen on the right side here for what I would like to know. My kind of idea behind this series is to ask people, what are the things that help to define you, that help to make you, you? Because a lot of it wasn't really relevant to me as an adult until I got into my adulthood, until I got into my 20s. I just didn't see how all of these things connected and how it was so important to look at the past and to look at how things were when I was a kid compared to today when my daughter Hannah is a kid. So a big part of this is making these videos for Hannah as she grows up, so that she can see what is life like and how is that life different from generation to generation. So I guess I get to go first. And my first question then is, where was I born? What's the setting? Well, I was born in the suburban area around Detroit, Michigan on June 25th, 1988, late 1980s. You'll hear from my mom and dad, Grandma and Grandpa Topel, in future episodes there. Question two, then, what was it like for me at home? I'm the oldest of two kids. I have my younger brother, David, and then my two parents. My parents are both teachers. They spent a lot of time when I was a kid at school doing that hard work, and I got to see what it looked like to be a teacher and to do difficult work that's emotionally difficult and emotionally taxing. And that was really valuable for me. The other thing I really liked about having my parents as being teachers is we had all of the times that we had off were together. We as a family were able to go on vacations during the summer, not have to worry about mom and dad getting time off of work. When we had Christmas break, we all had break together. So that was really nice growing up in that kind of home. What was the neighborhood like? So we lived in a suburban neighborhood in Sterling Heights, Michigan, at 14 Mile and DeQuinder. Growing up in the 90s, our neighborhood was just kind of what I'd picture as being a stereotypical 90s area. The subdivisions were built in the 1950s, or kind of that post-war period, so beautiful tree-lined streets with old trees. We were close to a mall. Going to Oakland Mall was great when we were kids. We were really close to that, and we could go with my parents shopping when we had to go. Not that we had a lot of money. With both my mom and dad being teachers, money was tight for most of our childhood. So I didn't really notice that, but it was something that as I grew older, I was like, oh yeah, we really didn't have much to go around. I remember one time my mom and dad got into a small argument over a Batman toy, which is a Batman riding a motorcycle. This is a Batman animated series in the 90s. And I got that toy brand new from a store. It probably cost $5 to $10. And my dad saw it and was like, we can't afford this. As a kid, that didn't really make sense, but as an adult, it helps me realize how tight money was, that $5 to $10 wasn't just a throwaway thing. It actually mattered when it came to budgeting for my parents. I was probably, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 8 years old when that happened. So next then, I want to talk about schools. What was school like? As a teacher myself, with both of my parents being teachers, school was something that was kind of weird because it felt comfortable. We spent loads of time there. I never felt like school was this intimidating place, in grade school especially. We knew the teachers outside of the classrooms. Like, I would often have conversations with teachers before I was in their class. So I never felt intimidated by teachers. But yeah, it doesn't mean school was always easy. I was a good student. I did very well in my classes. It was important to my parents that I try my best, and I really did. I wanted to please people. So I was somebody who would try hard in class and would get good grades, and generally school stuff came pretty easy. I always struggled a little bit in math classes. That was the hardest one for me for sure. But overall, I would say I was a good student. My teachers were nice. My classmates were nice. We went to St. John Lutheran School in Fraser, and at the time I had a big class. We had about 30 kids in the class, which might not sound big if you're coming from another area, but 30 kids in a class for a Lutheran school really felt like a good size. I had friends that I was close to, and I also was able to kind of get away from people that I didn't like spending time with so much. Were there bullies in school? Kind of. I just kind of thought of this as normal everyday stuff. You know, people would make comments, people would talk about appearance, like you might get negative comments if you were overweight, which I definitely was as a kid and still am. But it was never something that was relentless, and I always felt like I could escape it. You know, things like cyberbullying weren't a thing. If you wanted to insult someone, you had to do it to their face in person. And that didn't happen a lot. You know, you really had to be kind of a mean-spirited person or hurt yourself in some way to be consistently bullying. And we didn't have that. It doesn't mean it was always easy, but yeah, bullying was not a common thing, especially in the school that I went to. All right. Okay, next segment, rapid fire first things. First movie I saw in a theater without my parents. First movie I saw in a theater without my parents, I think, was Rush Hour 2. And that was probably, I was in junior high, like 7th or 8th grade, shortly after school lit out, and I was able to go with a group of my friends to see it. I think Kristen Rondo was in that group. Alex was in that group. Oh, I can't remember his last name now. But there were, and Matt Carnegie, I'm pretty sure, was in that group. That was my best friend, Matt, as a kid. And we went to see Rush Hour 2, which was an okay movie. I remember it being just super fun to be in the theater without our parents and, you know, go to the concession stand by yourself and sit there. I remember sitting in the front row of the second tier so we could put our feet up on the safety rail that was there. So yeah, that was fun. All right, first job. My first job I ever got paid for was mowing my neighbor's lawn. I think I got paid $20 a week for mowing that lawn. I'd mow it once a week. It took an hour to do, and $20 a week felt like the world's best pay. Like, I was so excited about that. And I probably started that around 5th grade through high school-ish. I eventually stopped that job, but there was some overlap between that and when I went to Dairy Queen. That was my first job that got a paycheck. I started at $5.25 an hour working at Dairy Queen, making ice cream for people that would get occasionally super angry. I never understood why people would be so upset when I'm trying to make your life better. Like, how are you an angry person coming in for ice cream? But yeah, I remember some of those interactions. Lots of fun stories there. Maybe someday in the future we'll talk about jobs. But yeah, I worked at Dairy Queen for $5.25 an hour, and that would have started in 2004. I started mowing lawns for Deb in probably 99 or 2000. Okay, first music I purchased with my own money. I don't know for sure if this is true, but I definitely purchased the album Drops of Jupiter by Train. Loved that album, loved that song. I remember really enjoying that song, Drops of Jupiter, that I heard it on the radio, and I bought a CD of Train, Drops of Jupiter. Today I still buy a lot of music, but that was the first. First car. All right, first car I ever drove was my parents' 1997 Honda Accord in white with a gold stripe. And I use that car quite a bit. That's the car that I would actually drive regularly in high school. But we only had a couple cars when I was a kid. And then I got my first car, I think the summer before senior year of high school. I got a 1994 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme in teal. And yeah, that was a serviceable car. I remember enjoying that car, but by the time I got it, let's see, it was a 94. I would have bought it in 2006, I think the summer of 2006. So it was a 12-year-old car. It had some issues. I eventually sold that car when I bought my Honda Fit in 2009. And I had to sell that car essentially for parts. I had to drive it to the place that bought it. I think it was a mechanic who bought it, but it had no brakes. I had to use the e-brake on the way in because the brakes were shot, and repairing the brakes and hiring it out would have cost more than the car. So yeah, that's how I got to my 2009 Honda Fit, which I still have as of the time of recording. All right, first date. Okay. The first date I went on, I was in high school. I was a high school junior, and I got to go on a date without my parents. I had done school dances and stuff before, but those weren't really dates. That was just a thing you went to. So I got to go on a date with my high school girlfriend. Her and I dated for a while after that. But on our first date, I got a bunch of friends together because I didn't want it to be intimidating and weird just to ask her to go in my car somewhere else. So I invited a whole bunch of mainly her friends along with us. We went to the AMC Theater close to Oakland Mall at 14 Mile-ish, and we went to see Shark Tale with Will Smith as the lead in this animated movie. Yeah, I remember that date. It was interesting jumping through all of those hoops to make everything work. And then me and that girl talked for a little while after, and then I drove her back to her parents' house. But yeah, that gave her an opportunity to bail if things weren't going well. But they did. They went well, and we dated for a while after that. And yeah, Hannah, your mom's going to find that kind of awkward as a conversation, but it's important for you to know what dating was like when I was a kid. It was in-person stuff. I had just talked to her at high school. And yeah, that was our first official date around the fall of 2005. All right, first president I voted for. I voted for, let's see, my first election I was allowed to vote would have been 2004. No, it would have been 2008. I was still in high school in 2004 when Bush was elected. In 2008, it was the Obama and McCain election. And I voted for John McCain, and I would still do it again. I really thought McCain was a great candidate. At the time, I basically just did what my parents and people around me thought was right. But even today, I still think John McCain would have been a great president and would have done a great job leading our country. And I think his track record after the election speaks really well of that. All right, 2 more questions, career questions. How did I know what I wanted to be when I grew up? And what are some hard moments? All right, how did I know what I wanted to be? I chose to become a teacher. I saw my parents being teachers all the time, and I knew what I was getting into. For a while, I did not want to be a teacher because I knew what that looked like and I knew how hard it was. So I had decided I wanted to do something else. I thought about being a pastor, but I never really felt called to be a pastor. I think when I was a high school junior, I even went to the seminary for like a future pastors conference. And it was fun and I had a good time, but I heard the stories of existing pastors and I was like, yeah, that's not me. I don't feel like that's what God really wants me to do. And I was looking at the things I was good at and what I enjoyed doing, and I love helping people discover something. I love learning, all sorts of learning new things, and I love helping people to learn new things. In particular, I remember helping a high school friend of mine named Tim Hillenbrand, and Tim was trying to do something in chemistry class that I had learned the year before, and he was just stumped, and I was able to help him out with it, and I'm like, yeah, this feels good. I like doing this. He felt really a lot better after our conversation, and I just love helping people and making it better. So I think that time, late high school, probably senior year of high school, junior year of high school, was when I said, I think I would be a really good teacher. I know I could do this, and I decided to do it. Let's see, next question. Hard moments in my career. As of recording in, what is this? This is January 2025. As of recording, I've been teaching for 14 years. I'm in my 15th year. I'm sure I'll have more hard moments, but there have been some challenges in teaching. The whole COVID pandemic was tricky to try and organize everything. I remember the graduation that year was real tough because we had, on the one side, a lot of people who were nervous and scared and didn't want to get together in public and found it to be a real big liability. And on the other side, we had a lot of parents who wanted to see their kids graduate. And sometimes there was the extra political stuff of people thinking COVID is real or it's not real, and vaccines are good or they're bad. At the time of that graduation, vaccines weren't even out. But yeah, that graduation in 2020 was tough because we had already canceled class trip. We had already canceled like all the normal 8th grade stuff. And we were hoping to do a virtual graduation ceremony, which we did, and it went off really well. And after seeing it, a lot of the parents liked it. But there were so many parents who were upset. And if I put myself in their shoes, I get it. I understand how frustrating it would be to feel like things are taken away that your kid has worked hard for. Yeah, so that was a difficult moment, and I know I rubbed some parents the wrong way by saying we should do virtual graduation, and the parents did not like that. But ultimately, I think that was a good decision. Maybe not the best decision, but it was a good decision. It worked quite well, and hopefully everyone's got past that now that our COVID pandemic is essentially over. Other hard moments in my career, emotionally, hardest moment would be hearing that one of my former students passed away. I've lost, I think, 3 students that I taught that are no longer with us. But I got a phone call from my principal, Sue Polka, when I was on vacation in Texas. And a student I had named Jared Smith had been in a car crash, and he died, and his mom died, and his sister, who was also in the car, survived. And it was just really, really hard to hear Jared, who was a great kid. He had just graduated 2 years ago, so it was still pretty fresh. I still knew him quite well. Great kid, would have been a great adult. And he made a mistake learning to drive, and he made a wrong turn. And I just felt so bad for him and for his dad, who lost Jared and lost Jared's mom all in one go. So yeah, that was emotionally the most difficult, not from the teaching perspective, but from the just wishing that's not how it was perspective. Because as a teacher, you get attached to your kids. So that was hard. All right, and then my last question here, legacy. Legacy question 1. If you could do anything differently in your life, would you? Yes, I'm sure there's some stuff I could do differently, but it would all be really minor stuff. I love my life. I love where I am. I love who I married. I love the house that I live in. I love where I work and the job that I do. All of those big things, I would not change those in a heartbeat. I'm sure there's small stuff I would do different. If I were to go back through high school and junior high, I would for sure play less video games and do more stuff that would transfer to adulthood. Because I loved playing video games as a kid. They were super entertaining. Their stories are great. Like, I have great memories of playing Final Fantasy VII or Assassin's Creed 2. It was great, and I love those experiences. It's like reading a good book. You know, they stick with you. But if I look at how many hours I played video games and compare that to how many hours I did other stuff, like learned how to play guitar. I didn't start doing that till I was an adult. I would be so much better if I started playing guitar when I was like 12 instead of playing hours of video games. So yeah, I would probably reallocate some of my time. Other than that, I think as an adult, something I could still change and should, as I think about it, I would be more intentional with adult friendships. I'm not very good at that. I tend to just do my thing and forget about connecting with other people. So if I got a do-over and could rewind to like just coming out of college, I would make a much greater effort to keep ties with my friends that I have. All right, number 2, what advice would you leave for someone watching this video? Okay, advice for anyone watching this video. Kind of my last question, think carefully about what you do with your time as a kid. You are never going to have more time to do things than when you are in your teens and very early pre-marriage, pre-kid life. So I would definitely use more of that valuable time doing stuff that had lasting meaning instead of just fleeting entertainment. For me, that was video games. Maybe for other people, that's social media. Spend as little time doing the quick sugar rush entertainment as you can and invest in more meaningful long-term skills, more meaningful long-term fulfilling things. Like for me, music, or maybe for you, reading or doing things that have long-term value. Not to say there's no place for video games or things that are fun, because there is, and it's great. But just be aware of how you allocate and spend your time. And last one, how do you want people to remember you? I want to be remembered as a good husband and a loving father, and above all, as a Christian man who points people to God. And that's what I really want. That someday when I'm gone, people can say, he did everything he could to show Jesus. Yeah, that's good. And how do I want to say goodbye? Thanks for watching. I'm glad that this was helpful, and hopefully I get to talk to you in real life for a lot longer.